hell is this music? This is so slow. What is this about? I gotta get something better going. Let's announce the stream there real quick. Okay, that music is not cutting for me. Let's go with I know what to. Okay, there we go. Okay. Oh man! All right, so we are live, and it's good to be here tonight, folks. All right. Flag pin set. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a real good stream. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to be talking with somebody running for Congress in our wonderful... hey! Thank you so much, Sigma Y, for a wonderful year together. And hey, got the Gold Star badge. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that, man. You've been here a long time, and I really I thank you for being here. I hope that you enjoy tonight's stream. We're going to talk to a Democrat running for Congress here in Florida. I think that'll be pretty exciting. It'll be a real good stream, and hopefully we'll get some new folks watching our wonderful stream out of it. They're running in my neck of the woods, Florida's 1st Congressional District, and their opponent, the fellow running is named Phil Ehr. He's a real cool guy, and he is running against somebody you may have heard of by the name of Matt Gaetz, who is probably President Trump's best friend in the House of Representatives. So it's a pretty heated race. Thank you so much, Opossum Friend, for being here. Perry Parrison, what a name. Sponsored by Poet First, indeed. Think Critical Live, it's good to see you. Looking forward to talking with you tomorrow. Liba Fly says last. Well, hopefully you're not the last. I mean, hell, that'd mean we'd only have, 10 people watching. Hopefully we'll have a couple more. Stealthy Catfish says, oh God, Gates the Simp. Well, I actually wish I had the idea to interview these folks sooner, because then I would have asked and perhaps even maybe have got Matt Gaetz. We'll see, depending on how tonight goes, maybe we'll invite Matt Gaetz on the show. He is, after all, my congressman. This is Where Is My Mind, retrowave synthwave cover by the Pixies. Slaps only, it's good to see you, my friend. Butters Amicus Curious says, when do you think a candidate will reach a projected 270 electoral votes Wednesday? I don't know. I guess that all depends on how quickly all of these record mail-in ballots are counted. Hopefully, I've heard at least in some places they're counted as they come in. So hopefully it doesn't take too long. I like to imagine that because we've all been predicting the worst, that we'll get some of the best. People predicting trouble for the last several months will have prepared for it accordingly. But, we'll see. That's probably a little too much to hope for. Biden with a 3-point lead from 2 in Florida. Johan, I hope it sticks. I really do. Because if he gets Florida, then, the night's probably over at that point, right? Sigma Y says, is Pennsylvania the one that doesn't start counting until Wednesday morning? I don't know, but we'll have to check it out. Normally, I guess the mail-in votes, even if they're not counted the day of, are not, they're not always decisive. So, you can make a projection without them. But I have no doubt that that'll be harder to do this year. Welsh Corky says, remember the days when elections were days you voted, not the purge? Well, I don't think we're going to have the purge. But, the year being what it's been, I'm sure it will be a busy day. So, Slaps Only got an interview with Phil Ehr. Looking forward to talking with him tonight. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good chat. I think so. So I'm looking forward to that. If Biden wins, I think people won't riot that bad. Well, I guess really, I think what probably is more important than anything is that the win is decisive as opposed to split. Epic Casey says, when are you starting? We are starting with Phil Ehr at 7 o'clock Central Time. So I just say in 17 minutes. That's 8 p.m. EST, so that's good. Where can I find your court debate? Asked C. Silva. C. Silva, that's a good question. Where can you find my court debate? I'll tell you where you can find it. You like watching debates? I'll tell you where you can watch it right now. You can watch it right here on YouTube. Check it out. It's a great little debate. I really enjoyed it, and I think you'll enjoy it too. So check it out. Yeah, there you go. And by the way, folks, if you haven't already checked out our YouTube channel, there's a link. We've got a lot of good content there. I think you'll enjoy it. So, thanks for the bits. Think critical. Frosty Pajama says, "Good evening, pals. Good evening to you, my friend. I hope you're doing well tonight." Let's see here. Bert Thunderson says, "Many store owners are boarding up their businesses in preparation for the presidential election." Yeah. Well, hopefully nothing comes of it, but, you know, I guess if I had a storefront business in a large urban center, I mean, I probably would have thought about boarding up once or twice this year. Hey, you know, smart move. Maybe it's an overreaction, but, you know, I guess boarding up doesn't cost much compared to, you know. Spicy Brady says, "If someone goes out for looting, can they pick me up a Rolex, please?" Well, I would guess that if you're a looter, you probably want to pick up the Rolex and then resell it for, you know, for cash. But I don't know. I've never looted before. Johan says, "It's literally the most important election since 2004. I would say it's the most important election since 2016. Elge Corky says, "I want that sentence to be on Time's next magazine cover." Like, I don't know. We'll see. How bad was it in 2016 after Trump won? I remember there were some angry demonstrations, but I don't remember it going on for that long. You know, I mean, it was over pretty quick, I think. Say Trump loses, but not a landslide, so Trumpism is still politically viable. Who's the next leader of the party? Someone like Tom Cotton? Well, King of the Internet says if you break the law, you waive many of your rights. What are you talking about? You waive many of your rights. First of all, if you break the law, you don't waive any of your rights. You still have to, you know, go to trial and be convicted. I guess unless you take a plea deal or something. I mean, even then, you still retain most of your constitutional rights. I don't know that it's Mike Pence, Epic Casey, but I guess we can think about some of the people who are likely to run. Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, Tom Cotton, maybe Nikki Haley, maybe Tim Scott, both from South Carolina. As Gallivision says, Tom Cotton is unbelievably uncharismatic. That's true. Josh Hawley, more charismatic, still not that charismatic. Of course, we're forgetting, too, if Trump is out and doesn't run again, Trump Jr.? I mean, Trump Jr. will probably be out there trying to run. So, and then, of course, Matt Gaetz, maybe, you know. Trump Jr., though, we're going to hear more from him, you know. It may be a very abortive attempt, but Trump Jr. will try. Herman Cain, no, Ishakala, alas, and I hope you're not saying this knowing this, Herman Cain passed away from COVID-19 this year. So, where is Phil Ehr? Does he have lip fillers? He'll be here in 13 minutes, so that'll be a good time. We're doing this via Zoom call, which is the way that real professionals do this stuff. It was actually kind of fun. I was talking to the press person for Phil Ehr, and she said, yes, one other person on Twitch did an interview with us, but they wanted to use, it was a big hassle. They wanted to use this software. I don't know what it's called. It starts with a D. I said, Discord? I said, yeah, that one. I was like, oh, yeah, you know, Discord's really good, but, you know, I don't really ever, like, when I do these interviews, I never say, hey, do you have Discord? Because I know nobody over 35 is using Discord for anything. Almost nobody, you know. It's kind of a Zoomer millennial type thing. So I don't message these professors and say, hey, my name on Discord is da-da-da-da-da. You know, we do it on Skype or on Zoom. Lisa says, shut up. Hey, it is what it is. My grandma loves Discord. Yeah, hey, yeah, it is what it is. Okay. So that should be fun. Why would I vote for a candidate not on Discord? Well, voted for Biden, and so should you. I agree, Baron von Foggy Bottom. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for subscribing. I really do appreciate that. Slaps only says, no shade, why they agreed to talk to you? 100 viewer Andy. I don't know, but they did, so here we are. CQD says, just act like they are the dumb ones for not knowing what Discord is. No, I told them all about Discord and that it's a great, great piece of software. But Bazzi, you're looking handsome and vibrant this fine evening. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. Bazzi, did you get a spray tan? You're looking very sunny today. No, this is just the way I look. Well, no spray tans here. Let's see here. Voting for Biden or Trump? Lull. Yeah. Are you like anti-voting? Epic says, this is why we need a gamer for president. Well, a gamer could be a very good president if we had some basic stuff taken care of in this country, because a gamer would spend very little time working, since gamers are notoriously unproductive. And in that sense, they would at least do very little harm. So in that sense, yes, a gamer could be a great president. I think that'd really be something there. Okay. Hey, Battle of Canada, it's good to have you. Divided Imperium says anti-electoralist lol. Yeah, I don't really know what that's all about. But hey, one thing I will always argue for is your freedom not to vote, not to participate in the process if you don't want to. Whiskey Strike says, I'm a gamer and I don't even game productively. I start 19 games to finish only one. I know what you mean. I've got, how many save files of Super Mario 64? Set? 3? 4? Captain Bagel says, I'm writing in the greatest gamer, Jesse Lee Peterson. Well, you spelled it without the Y, my friend. Jesse Lee Peterson, on Twitter.com, recently caught liking some pictures of what appeared to be hardcore man-on-man lovemaking. So stupid. Sigma Y says, that face when the gamer president thinks he can quick save and then start fucking around with the nukes. Indeed. Bad news bears. Tonight's guest is Phil Ehr. He's running for Congress in Florida's 1st District. You can learn more about him at the link below. And we'll be starting that in 9 minutes. So, should be fun. Pro Gamer Therapist says, I'm running for President 2024. Will you vote for me? Possibly. If it's you or Tom Cotton, right? Let's see here. Spicy Brady says, yo, Bassi, so let's say Biden wins and the president will legally challenge it. Will this hold up the inauguration and stop Biden from taking over? Well, I guess the long and short of it is, while I can't imagine what kind of challenge would run for that long, even if there were a challenge that somehow stopped Biden from taking over, it wouldn't keep Trump in office. I believe the way the succession would work is that, assuming Nancy Pelosi is reelected, the office would just go to her, because Trump and Pence's term would... I don't know, actually, because I guess here you're saying the challenge goes on. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would just be resolved before then, but I'd have to think about it now. Maybe we can watch that. There are some videos made on YouTube about how this would go down, so maybe we'll have to check those out. But I don't know. I don't think there's any situation where Trump is president after January 20th unless he wins the election. Let's see here. I'll go tell the Proud Boys to raid your stream. I don't care if they raid my stream. That's... I'd have a problem, I guess, if they raided my house, but, that would be a physical confrontation. Let's see here. Ravhoss says, birthday party, Pog, indeed. Well, actually, I guess my birthday's in a month. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, my birthday's here in a month, so maybe we'll do one. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying am I? You're 7.865. K Shoeman says, what's your opinion on Hassan? He's a very attractive man who holds a lot of mistaken beliefs. You know. But we're all on the same team here for the next few days. So. Trump gonna win. Fuck y'all Biden boys. Well, Ahaz, I guess it's possible, but unlikely. Okay. All right. Possible, though. You know, I mean, it is possible. Boss, did you board up your law office today? No, I did not. I don't foresee any violence in my part of the country. But, you know, I don't think I need to board up the house to defend it. As BNN noted yesterday, I've, you know, other perfectly reasonable means of defense. Florida's gonna burn, Bassiett, says Stealthy Catfish. I don't think so. Not sure that's gonna happen. Okay. I have family on Capitol Hill. God, I hope Biden wins. Well, I hope he wins too, although I don't know what that really has to do with your family on Capitol Hill. I mean, you know. Bossy, will you cry if Biden loses? No. Why would I cry if Biden loses? I'm not, you know. It's not, you know, I would be saddened by it, but I'm not gonna cry. Goodness me, I realize that you and Dan are the crucial Florida landlord votes that are gonna decide the election. Well, that sounds good to me, my friend. Can survive the chaos on my ranch. Thank you for that, Barry Reed. I appreciate that. I really do thank you for that. That's a very kind offer to offer me a spot on your ranch in the event of civil unrest. Thank you so much for that. Okay. You'll cry. No, there's nothing to cry about. I mean, it would be the status quo. It would continue to get worse, but there's not, you know, I'm not going to cry about it. Joe Biden wins. Will America be a communist country overnight? What kind of question is that? Guys, did you vote by mail? No way. I voted in person. You know, I mean, if you want to vote by mail, you should, you know, but Johan says, you have to stop your alopecia. Your sides are receding. Use minoxidil. I don't know what any of that is, and I don't see any receding hairline here, but, you know, is what it is. Thank you very much for the 100 bits. I appreciate it, Julio Barina. Okay. All right, Programming Therapist, you are officially a 10 out of 10 annoying, so I'm going to stop reading your comments until you tone them down. And with that, let's get going. Get this Zoom call going. Okay. So we'll turn that down. I'm hurt. Oh, I'm hurt now. Well, hey, look. I mean, you know, it ain't me. It's you. Okay. All right. So we're gonna join with the computer audio. Okay. And we should be going here. And
good evening.
Oh, okay. I think we're ready to go. Okay. Sir, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick introduction to our esteemed guest tonight. Phil Ehr is running for Congress in Florida's 1st District as a Democrat, running against Matt Gaetz. He's a husband, father, community volunteer, and U.S. Navy veteran who rose from seaman to commander in a 26-year active duty career. Former Republican, Phil flew reconnaissance in the Cold War and combat support in Desert Storm. He provided strategic advice to senior leaders in Washington, London, and NATO in the post-Cold War and post-9/11 eras. And it's a pleasure to have you, sir. How are you doing tonight?
Well, it's going great, and thank you for having me. I appreciate being on.
Yeah.
And I take one little exception to your introduction, if I may.
Oh.
I'm a lifelong patriot. and a citizen who is registered and affiliated to vote in various primaries.
Mm.
For 30 plus years, I've been registered to vote in the Republican primaries,
Mm.
and switched probably 4 years ago to the Democratic Party in order to vote in their primaries. But let's just stipulate that in election season, we're always wanting to say red, blue, or not. But let's remember what George Washington said in his farewell address. He said two things. He warned us about two things. One is regionalism. Back in his day, that means North versus South. That's not our primary identity. And it's not factionalism, in his words, but today that's parties. And his warning was, we are all Americans first. So among the things I'm running to do is to work for unity on the basis of good faith and mutual respect of differing opinions. And so here we are.
Well, I like the way that sounds. I mean, that really appeals to me as a very patriotic American, and yet I cannot help but say, if you'll pardon the skepticism, that
Of course.
is that really. Do you think that's something that's possible in this current political environment? I mean, we have, for example, a Republican Party that held up the nomination of Merrick Garland in 2015 and 16, and kept a seat for themselves, violating a lot of norms in the process. And then, violating that norm, they just got another Supreme Court justice on the court, Amy Coney Barrett. And irrespective of what you think about the qualifications of the justices that they have got on the court, there are a lot of people who feel like, look, this is a party that is willing to do anything and everything to keep power and to win. How do you dial that back? How do you appeal to?
So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. And notice I said unity on the basis of something. Two things: good faith and mutual respect. So good faith is lacking in what happened in the breaking of the norms. Good faith would be open about truth and evidence and not trying to hide stuff. And one of the extreme disappointments that I have in Matt Gaetz's performance, that he's made an art form out of distractions, of irrelevant activities, distortions of facts and evidence, and cover-ups of clear evidence that indicate, or clear indications of nefarious and illegal activity, and in financial crimes, I might add, and in flat-out lies. So that is not demonstrating good faith. So we must have a majority come in that is committed to American ideals, including looking transparently at facts and evidence, and dealing with each other on good faith as Americans.
Right on. Well, let me ask you this. It sounds like, from what I was reading and from what I've seen with your campaign, you focus a lot on national security and your background in national security. Yep. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that background, and I guess what it means to you in terms of policymaking if you were elected. What kind of national security policy would you pursue?
Well, one of practical security and realistic allocation of resources. I want to make sure that America is standing up to peace through strength. I also want to make sure that we take a realistic look at threats and not think that everything on the horizon is a threat. You don't go after problems that are emerging in the world with all old-fashioned ideas. The military is not a solution for every problem and threat we have. Certainly not, as we are going more and more into the information age and into information warfare. One reason I'm strong on national security in my campaign is that's been my career. That's been that's where I've devoted myself. So I happen to have that expertise, so it's natural that would come to the fore. It's also a great fit for our district. We have the largest military community of any congressional district in the nation. Matt Gaetz has never served, so I'm a good fit for this district, and I recognized throughout my career in the service, where we don't care about party affiliations actually when we're in uniform, or the bosses, or our office mates, or our shipmates, or our, the person next to us going through patrol on the ground. We don't care about that. We care about whether you can do your job, and whether I can trust you to have my back in where consequences are life and death, not just for ourselves but for others and for our mission. So so I talk about national security and recognize that there are good people that happen to be in senior levels where their party is known, the elected officials, some of the appointed officials. So there's good good collaboration, among the parties, and there has been since World War II. Before World War II, maybe not so much. We had Pearl Harbor, it galvanized the nation. We had the Lend-Lease Acts and the decision to have a war in Europe. Well, that was super controversial, kind of along the same lines as Trump versus non-Trump people now. But we came together because there was a fascist foe that threatened not just our allies, but ourselves and our prosperity and our ideals of America. So we went and we fought World War II. We won it, and we set out as a nation to lead and to create and to have a world that, at least in our view, was not hegemonic, but was empowering, in a place where we could do business, where we could travel and others could travel, and we would have a rules-based and a legal structure that was good for prosperity and our security. We held it together through the Cold War, and the promise of it was going into the information age, and we got slapped. We got slapped by falsehoods, deceptions, and lies. We got slapped by those forces who took advantage and manipulated us.
Well, so when you talk about that, are you referencing Iraq or 9/11, or what are you referencing there?
I'm referencing a combination of radicalism that turned out to be the attackers that came into us at 9/11. I'm referencing extreme patriarchal societies and kleptocratic societies, i.e. Putin. Yeah. Putin's governing of Russia is not anything but a criminal network in being. And it's money laundering. It is violation of civil rights and human rights. And the same for despots over in China, and the same for despots in North Korea.
Well, let me ask you, so I guess a couple of questions on this subject, because again, it seems like the subject that you've got the most experience on, and it's one that I'm really interested in too. So, hey, look, Vladimir Putin, nobody denies he is one bad dude. In fact, just today, another Russian oligarch was murdered in mysterious, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but I read the article about today. Another Russian oligarch was murdered by a crossbow in mysterious circumstances, and these kinds of killings happen in Russia in a not too infrequent basis. So yeah, certainly it seems to be a country where any meaningful rule of law has collapsed. And yet, that's a problem for Russians. Why is that a problem for Americans? Why should we really, why should we really care?
Yeah, I get you, and I understand that. Well, it's not necessarily our problem until they start exploiting our financial system, as they do, and send their folks over into America to live in the or to Western Europe to send their kids to university, to put their investments into our companies and our businesses and our hotels. Miami, New York, London. These are all places that have a tradition of money laundering in the real estate, and this is wrong. If you've ever shaken a hand across the table if you're a small business owner and you're shaking a hand with another small business owner, or a bank, or being a consumer, and you're doing something with another human being in America, you're expecting trust and an equitable exchange. That's commerce. That's great. Yeah. You don't see that when there's cheating going on. And one of the things that the military it drills in every recruit, and certainly I had my time with the drill instructor right in my face yelling something I had to yell right back, is the honor code. And that was, I will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those among us who do. And when people live financially privileged lives and risk-free lives, as Mr. Gates has done, it's hard to comprehend the integrity and the sacrifice that comes from a life of public service. He's just ill-suited to the role.
Well, let me, before because I would like to ask you some questions about how you feel about your opponent's effectiveness as the incumbent here. I want to ask you one more national security question because I know you mentioned China, and what do you think this country's policy should be with respect to China, a rising power? Certainly the second most powerful country in the world, perhaps on its way to becoming the first, dare I say. What should be, there are some who say, there's some who maintain that we should defend our allies in East Asia against a rising China, that we should build new alliances with countries like India. And there are some who say, look, it's time to end all these forever wars and stop poking our nose where, we don't belong. And why should Americans commit to war with China in the event of an invasion of Taiwan? Anyway, what business is it of ours there? I know you were mentioning basically corruption, the Russian kind of mafia, the criminal nature of Putin's state. But, the situation with China certainly seems a lot different. What should our policy be with respect to China?
With respect to China, it should not be to augur toward war. It should be to hold them accountable for human rights violations in the international arena. It should be to engage in trade that is open to the extent of, when I say open, I don't mean tariff free. I do not mean that at all. I do mean that it is something where American business people and Chinese business people can get together and they can trade with each other, where American workers are protected from labor markets that are protected from predatory labor markets that have traditionally come out of China and other parts of Southeast Asia. So, in broad terms, stand up to them. Do not go into a shooting war with them. Don't let them push us out of the South China Sea as they're doing militarily now. Strengthen our alliances around the Pacific Rim so that when America speaks, gosh, our friends in Australia and South Korea and Taiwan and Thailand, to the extent they're friends these days, and Vietnam, to the extent they're friends these days, all of us can speak together, but it goes back together on what basis? It's on the basis of good faith and looking at honest relationships, not cheating relationships. But it's important to have alliances and strengthen them. Have those alliances in military, in economics, in trade policy, and in diplomacy. That's the way to move forward with despotic regimes like the Communist Party of China, like the nuclear-powered, nuclear-capable North Koreans as well.
Okay. And when you say that raises one other question I'd like to ask you about related to China. So on the one hand, I know that you said we should be able to trade with China and with other countries in East Asia. On the other hand, you said, but not tariff-free. What do you think of the president's trade policy, trade war with China? And what do you think then the role of tariffs should be if you would differ from what he has done with respect to his trade policies? Because prior to President Trump, we were pretty anti-tariff, nationally, and he has introduced a lot of new tariffs. Would you maintain those? Do you think we should have those, or do you think we should have different ones? What's your approach there?
Well, we got to start with the realization of what is a tariff. A tariff turns out to be a tax on the consumer. So let's recognize that tariffs on the tariff war kicking off is really a tariff war, a tax on us, because we, in this relationship with China, we're consuming a hell of a lot, right? So we need to recognize that, but we also need to recognize that that there's a lot of capacity of production and manufacturing and intellectual property that has migrated there that needs to be throttled back so that we retain here some basic infrastructure that we learned all too painfully with the COVID response, Where are our ventilators? Well, it took a while to get them back up to speed. Where are the masks? Oh, we had to get them from China. Oh my gosh, really? Yeah, so you need to look at the changing circumstance, and the virus was one of the changing circumstances that brought our collective attention to a problem. Now, people that are in government, in the executive branch, and in Congress need to be forward-looking enough to recognize these things so they don't surprise us again. So yeah, I'm not sure if I got to the full answer to your question, but we need alliances in trade built on democratic values.
Okay. All right. So perhaps more favorable treatment for countries that share our values and less favorable treatment for countries like China that do not.
Absolutely. And that goes not just to our values in the idealistic sense, although that does apply.
Yeah.
It goes to conditions for workers in factories and safety and compensation and all the social issues that go around that.
Okay. What about, so I know we've talked about, kind of national security and tariffs, and I guess to try and start to get to more local issues, what do you think about kind of the economic policy that we have taken in the last few years of deregulation especially at the federal level? Pretty aggressive tax cuts, where most of the benefits have flowed to the wealthiest Americans, but some benefits have flowed, to other Americans, and the corporate tax cut as well. How do you feel about the economic policies of the last few years during the Trump administration, and what do you think Congress should be doing differently?
Well, I'd like to answer in three broad ways. Okay. One, that Congress needs to step up and reassert itself as the primary leader of our political will.
Yeah.
And the Congress has ceded to the executive way too much power, so that decisions on war and peace are even gone, but decisions on trade are rightfully Congress's to make, not the executive branches. And so the dysfunction that Congress has shown, because we're hyperpartisan, because we're all in the scoring game, because our planning horizon for budgeting and taxing is so small, we need to have a longer view and make more sensible decisions with sensible, practical-minded people, not people that are amplify divisions. Instead, we need people to be leaders in monetary questions. On regulation, the blunt approach is a sloppy approach. It's a lazy approach. So I look at, let's just take one favorite regulation of mine, came in after the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Deepwater Horizon trashed our beaches in my district.
Yeah.
And one of the regulations that came in was a safety valve check regulation where public regulators would need to eyeball the safety valves. And guess what happened? As soon as Trump and Gates came in, they yanked that. They yanked that on the blunt instrument of, oh, no more regulations. The industry will take care of that. Well, it's a public interest to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen again. I spent my life in aviation. Right. And safety is inherent in the inherently is, it needs to be part of everything you do when you take your body in some metal up in the air, right? When you make a mistake, people crash and people burn. And there's a lot of suffering. So you learn from that. Well, we learned something from the BP oil spill, and we have failed to implement it on. So off we go, more Deepwater Horizon and more oil drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. Maybe not so much off of the Florida coast, but off of the others as well that are not being dealt with. So the regulation is in the eye of the beholder a bit, but safety and public interest is a legitimate place for regulations to be. Now on tax cuts, let's talk about trickle down economics on steroids. That was the 2017 tax cuts that did not deliver what was promised. It did not deliver what was promised. It was abused by corporations in their famous buybacks. The promise of jobs and sustainable growth never occurred. The bringing down of the deficit did not happen. And as a matter of fact, we built more and more debt without the jobs that would have compensated for that, maybe, um, on the eve of a COVID. So now we're digging ourselves more and more into debt. We must spend now to have the safety of families and small businesses and local governments who are at very serious economic peril
Yeah.
because of the virus. But we cannot have the more just tax cutting on the false theory that it's going to engender growth. It hasn't didn't do that before COVID, and as we build out, we need to make sure that we rebalance to get equitable taxation and build the middle class with the working families and working people at the forefront.
Well, let me ask you. So there were a few interesting points you made there. One, I think perhaps the most interesting point was you mentioned that Congress has ceded a lot of its authority to the presidency, and you mentioned tariffs. And while I'm personally very opposed to tariffs, you said something very interesting to me, which was, I think Congress should take control of that power. And that I really like that, because if we're gonna have tariffs, then it would at least be good if they were not the result of the capricious and arbitrary decisions of one man who is not accountable except once every 4 years. And so what's interesting to me is that issue of Congress giving up that power. And that's a problem that we had a conversation yesterday with somebody. We had a debate with somebody on the issue of court packing, and the issue came up of, this is a problem. The judiciary is really powerful in our country because Congress has given up a lot of power. They refuse to decide on questions, and so it falls to the courts to decide. As somebody who is running to be a member of that esteemed body, why do you think it is that Congress people would defer decisions? Why would they give decisions to the president to make, or leave decisions to the courts rather than take on that authority themselves and make the decision one way or another?
Because we've been oriented too much toward party loyalty, and we've had too much money in politics. Putting money in politics by vested interests that bring out the extremes in us. And we need to take a balanced look at lots of issues. Balance does not mean compromised. It means full spectrum look at a problem, say immigration, and recognize that there is a way forward. If we don't have a way forward, we have a broken system that never moves. And that's what happened in the current. That's what happened that allows us to go along a path that ends us having some, babies taken away from their parents at the border. That kind of inhumane, awful situation is, in my mind, the direct result of Congress failing to come up with comprehensive immigration reform. Was it 5 or 6 years ago now?
Oh yeah. Well, what does comprehensive immigration reform look like in your ideal view?
Well, I don't have the exact
just kind of broad strokes,
Broadly, I want to make sure that we live up to America's promise of an ideal land, where a land and a country that has borders, where American ideals are revered, and we strive to make an ever more perfect union off of the principles articulated in our Constitution, less the slavery, and less the patriarchal society that was back then. But as we've moved in beyond slavery, on the chattel slavery, we still have remnants of that, and those remnants are part of the thing that I say is needed to recognize, to have the tough decisions, the tough conversation, I should say, about race relations in this country. It's a result. We're still dealing with it. We need to put more focus on that. We still need to deal with equity for women in the workplace, and women in society, and other people who are expressing themselves in ways that don't fit with some religious ideals. We are a nation that is separate from a theocracy.
Yeah, separate, the separation from church and state. Sounds like you're referencing there. Okay, well, I can really appreciate that, and I gotta say it was really interesting too what you said about kind of building back better, because that seems, it seems really important. If you're going to have an economic policy, to have one that is intended to spread the benefits of, to spread the benefits of a prosperous economy more widely, rather than being designed, as the president's tax policy seems to be, to just send the benefits, upward.
Well, let me just say that since you have a library behind you and look at all those cool books, you probably know about this guy de Tocqueville,
Yeah.
who traveled the United States. And what did he say in his observations of the young American Republic then? That equality and liberty were forces that were of equal value to Americans. And he was particularly struck, having come from France, that where liberté was what their generations were working on. But it's the equality that struck him the most, where we value equality. And, you can take that you can twist that around to communism type of equality. No,
Right.
but we need to strive more toward equality and equity in commerce, equality before the law,
Right.
and that's a way forward. Not trickle down. Not I've got mine, screw you. I've got my health care. Forget you. You're on your own, buddy. No.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, what's frustrating, I guess, about the current moment is, it's one thing to have a government that is genuinely, I guess, laissez-faire. It is another to have a government that is literally intending, by its policy, to drive wealth upward. Like, it's one thing to not be involved. It's another to be actively involved for the sake of the enrichment of, I guess, what we would call the 1%.
Right, and that's where the Russian model threatens us.
Yeah.
So, and you see on the fringeness of the Trump land, and I don't mean to, okay, the fringeness of that, the where people look toward Russia and are tempted to think, hey, Christian country, actually wrong. Right. No racism, that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
And just nice to each other, wrong. Yeah. So, but there's this magnetism towards Putin that is infecting us.
I will say it has been one of the most fascinating from a distance, but terrifying when you realize that you're, in the same country as these folks, has been the shift of affection for Russia that I guess used to be from the left, some decades ago, and now it's a right-wing thing, and it's just like, geez Louise, what? It's as unfounded as ever. Russian culture, of course, beautiful. The Russian people have a wonderful history. But when we talk about, like, in terms of a government organizing a society, that's not a model that I think anybody should be looking for.
And I've got some friends in Russia, and we talk politics. Let's say 5 years ago, we say, well, the question was Putin's re-election, and well, come on, where's the opposition? Let's have a contest. And he said, well, no. If not Putin, who? If not Putin, they didn't like him, but who? And that is a result of them, his regime destroying the loyal opposition, or not thinking that any opposition could possibly be loyal. Right. And that's where the Trumpism is leading us now, to think that the Democrats are demons and unpatriotic. And I get that all the time. Like, oh, really? Come on. And we've got to on our side. I don't know where you sit politically, actually. I'm just meeting you for the first time. Yeah. But on what I consider centrist or patriotic or the Democratic Party side, we need to be careful not to demonize anybody who's not a Democrat or anybody who is from a more conservative point of view in their perspectives, because those perspectives are valuable. And notice that I'm not saying the Republican Party. Their leadership has been completely compromised in in ethical ways that are that take a long time to repair.
It is pretty spooky seeing what happened, I guess, to a party that 4 years ago, most of the institutional leadership of the party was opposed to President Trump, and now, 4 short years later, a lot of the same people, Lindsey Graham, I suppose, comes to mind, who were very opposed to President Trump during the campaign, are now just,
So, can I just make an observation about that? So,
Sure, yeah.
I noticed Matt Gates's progression in that. In 2016, he did not have a single bad word to say about Donald Trump in that I saw in that in the 2016 election, where he himself was vying with a number of others for the Republican nomination for the House seat. And as time, and you can see the famous an instance of that was when he stood up in that campaign and said, "Of course, Donald Trump should release his taxes right now." Like, yeah, well, he's completely flipped on that.
Yeah.
And he flipped because he said, "Well, it's been adjudicated in the 2000s. The American people don't care anymore." Well, we do, and the law does actually, and so stand by. But he's grown more and more addicted to power. Raw political power, and I see it not just from Gates, but from other national figures when they say, "Well, okay, why are you aligning with this guy, Trump?" And it's because they rationalize it by saying, "Hey, he was elected by a populist movement, and the people are there, and it's popular. And look at all the enthusiasm, and that's where we've got to respect that. Not so much Trump. We need to respect the population who elected him, and to some extent, that's the majesty of democracy, the popular will." But the popular will wasn't really, expressed in the election of Donald J. Trump. It was the Electoral College. And as time marches on, this popular will is addicted to fantasy that comes out of, his mouth. And Gates said, "Hey, Trump is not someone to be managed. Trump is an opportunity to be seized." So therein lies his unprincipled quest for power. And you see it in his personal behavior and where he spends his time. And it's not here with the people of Northwest Florida. And we're missing business opportunities. We're missing growth opportunities. And we're missing opportunities to improve the quality of life because he's focused on the power out of the White House and doing something there where I offer the good people of Northwest Florida authentic representation.
Well, let me ask you something about that, because I watched some footage of President Trump's visit to, he did a rally in Pensacola a few days back, last week maybe. And Matt Gaetz showed up and said, "Hey, I had to tell the folks at Fox News that I wouldn't be there tonight because I was going to be here with y'all." And I was thinking, I will say, the only time I have seen our esteemed congressman has been, I guess, like on Fox News and cable news shows. Is that a thing? Like, is he really just is that what he does all day? Or is that just, am I missing something? I mean, and if so, has that brought any benefit to our district? I mean, has his affinity, his closeness with the president led to any tangible benefits to us here?
Not that I can identify. Gates will claim that the individual assistance from FEMA after Hurricane Sally was a benefit of it. Well, I just note, dear friend, that took a long damn time to realize, right? And it should have been a much faster decision. I can't point to any particular, the F-35 program out in Eglin Air Force Base, Gates will claim is a result of his advocacy, which is hogwash. Having worked in the Pentagon myself and worked in national security and the government, senior levels as a senior staff officer, I can assure you that Matt Gates's advocacy has nothing to do with the health and of military coming into our district. However, in the case of the military construction diversion that was at Tyndall Air Force Base to stop reconstruction after Hurricane Michael and having that money go to build a wall on the southwest border was something that Matt Gaetz supported wholeheartedly. and something that is just wrong-headed.
Wait, is that?
And
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Well, I'm curious. Is that what happened with Hurricane Michael? Was emergency relief that would have gone to
well,
that?
there was some construction money, military construction money, Milcon we call it,
Yeah.
one of them was to build a firehouse, I think, at
Mm-hmm.
Tyndall,
Yeah.
and then the wall funding was in the news, and the president diverted money that was going to build that
Mm-hmm.
to building the southwest border wall.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Gates was all for that, and
Yeah. Oh wow.
it
Damn.
gapped it gapped fire safety. Also, military housing for families
Uh-huh.
was a victim of that as well. That's quality of life for people directly,
Hmm.
and so and the safety of the fire was there. The fire services there must have had some kind of delaying effect for rebuilding Tyndall, and had a detrimental effect on the F-35 program. Okay, so relatively minor, but it shows the
Mm-hmm.
value
Yeah.
of the priorities that are not aligned with people here.
Mm-hmm. So they're focusing on basically. So it sounds like your contention is he's focusing on these national, on this kind of pursuit of like national glory for himself, but not really bringing anything back to the district.
That's my view. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, okay, and so I'm going around and talking to municipal leaders
Mm-hmm.
across the district, and I see Gates went up to Jay, Florida, and talked about waterworks there. I'm not seeing federal money being diverted or delivered for their waterworks projects. I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing requests from Crestview about roadworks, and I'm not seeing a good response from the federal government. I'm seeing requests for sewage assistance, building sewage from people in Milton,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not seeing the federal government or restore. I'm not seeing federal money and attention being given, and that goes back to a fundamental flaw in 2017 when Gates came in
Mm-hmm.
Congress in a group that said, let's get rid of health care instead of doing something like an infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you're going to come in as a new Congress. Let's tackle something that is unifying, that is building, that people need, that's going to make a good difference in our material work and bring good jobs to the country. And they just forwent all of that, and here we are.
Well, so let me ask you some questions kind of locally related then. So I know, for example, we're talking about hurricanes and hurricane relief. So first of all, what would you do differently in response to, again, thinking about local issues with respect to hurricane relief here in the Panhandle? I know the biggest issue perhaps locally is the bridge that connects the city of Pensacola to Gulf Breeze has been destroyed by the storm. So two communities that were very much intertwined are wrecked in terms of their relationship. What would you do with respect to that?
The job of a congressman is, I don't know, maybe three things.
Mm-hmm.
One is a legislator.
Yeah.
We work with colleagues in Congress to represent the people's will in creating new laws, of getting rid of bad laws, and looking out for the titles, the codes, the United States Code. A second function of a congressman is to have oversight over the federal government's performance, the executive branch. So to look into matters that are disturbing, or to find better ways of doing business so the people are served and the money is being used with due respect to the hardworking people who pay taxes. And the third thing is is to represent whatever the needs of the people are, and to bring attention and public discussion to issues that are lacking attention. So among the things I want to do as your congressman is to bring attention to some pollution matters that haven't received sufficient attention. And, maybe the congressman should be thinking about Skanska and, parking himself on the bridge and thinking, hey, what happened here? And bringing a little bit more attention and government resources to the problem. Now, I'm not saying that that's the appropriate response in this case, but I do think that the congressman's attention needs to be more needs to include those poor decisions by by Skanska, and to see, well, okay, what happened in the failure of oversight from the Florida authorities?
Yeah.
And did the U.S. Coast Guard have a role in the safety of that? I'm not sure of that answer, but I would be looking into it, and I would be making my findings known in a more rapid fashion that he hasn't even begun to address.
And I know there are folks, for example, in the chat saying, well, the bridge may be a state level project. But the reason I ask, and the reason I think it's fair game, is that sometimes, and I don't know about this particular bridge, there's federal funding involved anyway in infrastructure. And, so there's a lot of times there is a mixture of different layers of government. There's absolutely a legitimate cause for federal oversight there. Something else I'd ask you, I know you mentioned pollution. I'm not sure if this is what you're referencing or maybe something else, but I know that Perdido Bay suffers from pollution as a result of what I believe is a big facility from an international paper company that is basically given license to discharge a lot of effluents into Perdido Bay, and as a result, the pollution there is higher than much higher than it would otherwise be. Is that I guess something that you're referencing? Something you think?
Absolutely.
Is anything being done about that locally now? And if not, what would you do about it, or what would you advocate for?
I want to bring attention to the project. I've been in Escambia Board of County Commission meetings, or at least one of them, where the international paper representatives came to renew a permit. And the question was asked to the county scientist, are they in violation of federal pollution standards? And the answer was, no, they're not. Okay, ka-ching, you're approved to continue operations, where we know that that's just not right.
That was it.
It's not right because we smell it. It's not right because of the toxic levels in Perdido Bay and in Escambia Bay. The effluent goes both ways. And so, and I won't be one of those elected officials who will take a little boat out into Perdido Bay and dip my glass in there and drink the water just to prove that I'm not dead. No, and we have one, or at least one.
Somebody's done that.
Oh yeah, I don't want to name names.
Ooh, I don't care what kind of job.
Just go check it out. It's not Gates. It's one of the people that supports Gates.
Yeah, I don't care what kind of job I'm shilling for. I ain't drinking that water.
but what I do promote is looking at cleaning, amending the Federal Clean Water Act, the Federal Clean Air Act. They haven't been updated in generations, and part of it is putting in new science to it, and part of it is examining the structures by which international paper, as an example, is able to keep their standards of effluent low, keep their standards low. Yeah. And there is provision in the statute to raise the standard of non-polluting, but they've found ways not to do that. So I want to update. I want to be part of a new Congress that updates the Clean Air and Clean Water Act, and I want to make sure that when we look at the pollutants going into the atmosphere, they have the creosote plant that's upriver. It's putting out a lot of greenhouse gases too. Take a look at that as part of our identifying a need to reduce those pollutants and be getting back in the business of American leadership on global warming and climate change.
I mean, just to be clear, you're talking about climate change and carbon emissions. You're not some kind of communist, right? I mean, what is that? I mean, we don't.
That question does not compute with me.
No, I'm just being facetious, because it seems like when we talk about environmental standards in this country, there are a lot of folks who say, well, look, there's no way, it is always a trade-off between economic growth and a clean environment. And
that's the same kind of thinking that says there's a trade-off between opening up the environment and conquering the COVID. It's not a trade-off. It's the same thing. It's way of thinking. Well, we could be safe flying our airplane, or we could just take off and not deal with the crash and burn that we saw last week. No, Safety is part of it, and global warming is a safety concern as well.
Um, I mean, so one other issue, I guess, related to global warming, and I'd like to ask you some questions about veterans issues. And I don't know if this is kind of tangentially related to global warming. Beaches and the public beaches and I guess customary use is what I think the policy is called. So in the state of Florida, at least at one time, it was the case that all of the beaches were considered the public property, sort of the commons of the state. And it seems like that has been increasingly rolled back here. I know Rick Scott, when he was governor, sought to roll that policy back. Now I know when, for example, we go to the beach, it seems like, sections of it are sort of are now private property in ways that they have not been in the past. So what do you think about that notion of, public use of beaches? I mean, do you think they should be considered private property like anything else? Or do you think we should have, maintain the sort of open access that we've historically had?
Open access as we historically had. The Navy sent me here. I first came here in 1984. I went to flight school, and back then in the mid 80s, you can go out to the Floribama and you drive along largely undeveloped areas, and the beaches where the dunes were there, and you could go and you could just be on the beach and recreate and enjoy them. And generations before and centuries before, humans have been doing that as well. And so there's this legal term called customary use, where it is the custom to use the beaches in a respectful way to recreate. And that has been a legal tenet for a very, very long time, up until and in application on Perdido Key, not so much on Pensacola Beach, but picking up again over in the non-federal areas of Okaloosa, Destin, and going out into Fort Walton Beach, or excuse me, Walton County. So that's the extent of the first congressional district on the beach, on the shoreline, the border of Walton County all the way to the Alabama border. I'm interested in all of that. You referred to former Governor Scott signing a piece of legislation, and it was called House Bill 631, which ended up removing customary use from counties that hadn't implemented it already or implemented before a date, and that, it turns out, targeted Walton County. So it's a bill that had impacts on Walton County and no other, or maybe one other, but only Walton County. Yeah. So, and when that was signed in, big hue and cry from Democrats, Republicans, Independents, the whole community is against that, apart from some beach owners that have, as you say, marked out because they believe that they purchased land all the way to the wet sand or something like that. Yeah. I think it's theirs. And they didn't like people walking past. They didn't like people stopping to sunbathe or fishing or surfing and coming ashore. So they're starting to put up, restrictions to that. Some don't care. I mean, some are very welcoming. Some property owners are very welcoming, and others are putting up no trespassing signs. You see in Destin, the segmented beaches out there, the restricted beaches out there from the big condos, and you're seeing that creep more and more into Perdido Key. So you're very right to call attention to public access and customary use of beaches, and it's a big issue, and it was spoiled, in my view, by House Bill 631 that was signed into law by Governor Scott. And Matt Gaetz is on the wrong side of that due to his silence. He's partnering with people who are supporting that legislation and are doing other actions in court and in the legislature and in the advocacy for or against beach replenishment and taxpayer money that feed into the false legal premise that that private property rights of of beachfront property is the same as private property rights anywhere else in the country. And I contend, and the customary use tradition has always contended that that is not right. So right now, the issue is with the state of Florida, both in that piece of legislation and in local court in Walton County right now. And that's playing out. But I think my opinion is that ultimately it's going to be Tallahassee's political will that's going to be driving here. And with the current Gates type Republicans in charge in Tallahassee, that's not going to happen. I, on the other hand, as your congressman, can bring more attention to the issue. I can be an ally in the in Washington for people who want to preserve public access and customary use of our beaches. We had a commercial in our campaign, and I draw everybody's attention to it because I'm running for office. I'm offering myself up. It's on our YouTube channel. It's also on our Twitter feed. Phil Ehr, Twitter. And check it out. It's about beaches, and it's a 30-second that spells some of that out and has some references about Matt Gates's role, both directly and maybe tangentially and supporting the wrong side of that. There's another legal issue with that too, and that was you probably heard of the Save Pensacola Beach crusade that occurred last few years, and that relates to beach access as well. It's not customary use, but it's the same philosophy that is driving that bill that Matt Gates introduced, and that was the 2017 Escambia County Land Conveyance Act. Did that ostensibly, he claimed it was to fix a local taxation problem, and he also wanted to open the pass at Navarre without environmental studies or anything. Just open it up, $1 billion worth of infrastructure, he claimed. And who cares about the replenishment of the beaches or the cost of keeping the damn thing open, et cetera, et cetera. But what he failed to do, and what he hid from the public in that act, because he inherited this kind of bill from his predecessor, Jeff Miller. But the change Mr. Gates made was to remove federal protections in the piece of legislation from that portion of Santa Rosa County that would be conveyed from Escambia County to Santa Rosa County, leaving environmental protections only in the hands of the county commission in Milton instead of any federal protection. Wow. And I and many others, and I was not the leader of this, but I was part of supporting the halt of that bill. And thank goodness, after it passed the House of Representatives, because things do get there with the home congressman pushing something. Right. But Senator Nelson stopped it. Finally, he wasn't sure he would be able to, that the Republican majority would put it in something that he couldn't stop, but he was able to stop it, thank goodness. And Marco Rubio was nowhere to be found on this, sadly. Wow.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're an advocate for the beaches here, because that's it's one of the it's the half the reason people move here, right? So one of the wonderful things that make our little part of the country so great, and we've got some of the best beaches in the country. So to have them closed off or to have them polluted feels like to me it would be a real shame. Okay, let me ask you here. I know we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to ask you, as we talked, I grilled you on national security earlier, but I didn't really talk about sort of the more personal nature of, I guess, veterans issues, which are a real big issue in our community. I guess I want to ask you, what do you think, broadly speaking, America owes to its veterans? What should we, what should the federal government be doing for veterans, maybe that it is not currently doing, in your view?
Respect for service. We have that in words, not so much in deeds, for those of us who are suffering, for the veterans among us who are suffering from hidden illnesses, from a bureaucratic system in the VA. Now, a lot of progress has been made in the Veterans Administration. Medical is the main issue, but there are other issues as well. Transition services, education. I'm for extending the GI Bill in some form to current service people, service members. But it's the main issue is medicine and healthcare. I want to see the trend toward privatizing the VA stopped. I do want to see options given to veterans who cannot get timely medical support from medical care from the VA system to be able to go out into town and get the treatment they need quickly. And the Veterans Choice Act that has come in recent years has gone well for that. President Obama signed one. I think there was action in the last Congress. I think that the President Trump signed. It was a positive step. Signed it because the Democratic House of Representatives, that was this Congress, by the way, the Democratic House of Representatives came together in a bipartisan way and produced something. So not everything in Washington, even in the Trump era, has been polarizing. That is something that people came together for the benefit of our former warriors, and that's to be applauded. But I don't want to see privatization, and that's the mega trend that those who like trickle-down economics and all government to an extreme purport. And I want to see that when we make decisions about war and peace, but war, that we factor into the cost, the projected care to people that's going to be needed at the end.
Well, I think that makes sense, because it seems like even it does seem like there's always a lot of unmet need, even though from what I've seen, the folks at the VA do their best to provide timely service. It seems like they sometimes maybe don't have backing from the folks in I guess Washington, who, I know you mentioned privatization. I know that I don't know of any people in Congress who will openly say we want to privatize the VA, but it does seem like some of the steps they take are aimed toward that goal. I'm glad to hear that you're not a fan of that.
Maybe looking out and projecting a little bit, forecasting too much into trends is a danger. Let's look more practical at what's happening at the VA clinic in Pensacola and out east around Eglin Air Force Base, that small one there. Doctors, there's not enough doctors.
Yeah.
And there's not enough capacity there. And veterans need to go off to Biloxi, Mississippi, and they happen to. We have the largest military community in the.
Yeah.
We are split administratively in various ways that might not make the best sense from the consumer, veteran consumer point. What I'm committed to doing, keep myself from being disconnected from my fellow veterans with respect to healthcare, is I'm not going to take the healthcare plan that members of Congress are afforded when they're in office. I'm going to forego that and make sure I get my healthcare from that which I'm already entitled to military service. That means the active DoD hospitals, but primarily the Veterans Administration.
And I'm glad you mentioned that about the doctors, because that's something else I've heard in reading about the VA, is that while there is a big focus on tightening up metrics at the VA, trying to squeeze more out of the people who already work there, it does seem like I'm glad to hear this from you, because I guess it suggests that I'm not mistaken here. It does seem like there's a real shortage of doctors, and that for whatever reason they are not willing to hire the doctors that would be necessary to really address the needs of veterans more thoroughly.
Or doctors are not being retained.
Oh, I see.
Overworked, underpaid.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that that's something you've got in mind to deal with. So I guess my last question would be this, and that it would be about jobs, So Pensacola, a big military community, but I do wonder about as we talk about building back better after the disasters of 2020. What do you think Congress can do? What do you think the federal government should do in terms of one, stimulus, and then two, I guess, fostering job growth in communities like ours?
Well, it's not going to be. The federal government, in my role, is going to be to assist the creative juices of very talented people around here. So I would see that I would want to see the federal government come in with an infrastructure bill that promotes the things we need,
Mm-hmm.
that produce good, solid jobs that are sustained. The building of roads, the building of water management systems, of the production of energy that takes more solar and more wind and other things. The cyber growing cyber security and expertise that we have because of our military bases, because of Corey Station, because of what's going at UWFs, because of what's being studied and advanced by the Institute for Human Machine Cognition down in Pensacola. These are gems, and are places that can grow and can make partnerships and can trade in and build in those. And the federal government's role should be, and your representatives' role should be, in finding opportunities within the federal government and other places to put trade together. Oh gosh, it possibly could be with other countries, or around the states to advance advance the economy and have it be growing here. So I want to partner with development authorities here, and I want the big developers I want to partner with, and the small businesses I want to partner with in finding the opportunities and helping people be all that they can be, or create jobs and create prosperity and grow.
Right on.
I'm not going to be on Fox News or on MSNBC or CNN as my life's work. Yeah. No, I mean, I'll be there, but it's not going to be my focus.
Not your full-time job?
No.
Well, that's good to hear, because we do have a lot more, a lot that we in this community need, a lot that our country needs, and Fox News doesn't have too much to offer there. But I will say this, sir, it was a real pleasure talking to you tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm very glad to say, I know you were asking what my political leanings were. I thought it would be more fun to not disclose them right at the outset, okay, and to ask some questions that were, sometimes a little softer, sometimes a little firmer. But I'll say this, I was proud to vote for you. So thank you so much for talking with us tonight. And hey, I really appreciate the chance to talk with you, because I like when I can talk to somebody about the issues at stake, rather than just a lot of the everyday nonsense that American politics seems to revolve around these days. And I appreciate the back and forth on all that.
Well, I've enjoyed the conversation as well, and I'm looking forward to sharing an adult beverage with you at some point when it's safe to do so.
That sounds good, sir. Well, thank you very much.
The audience who might be listening now, you haven't voted, bring 10 friends with you and get out there and vote, because this election needs to be something that we are proud of, not to something that we're going to shy away from, we're going to cower from. No, we are owners of self-government. Let's get out and demonstrate that. Thank you very, very much.
Right on. Thank you, sir. And folks, if you want to check out more about Phil Ehr, I've dropped an address to his website there in the chat. You can check it out, give him a follow, check it all out. And Phil, thank you so much for your time. Good luck. Take care. All right, folks. What did y'all think of that? That was our first interview with first interview with somebody running for Congress. What did you guys think? It was I think that was a pretty good start. Glad you all liked it. Hopefully we had some new people in the chat. Now, I know that normally our traffic is pretty high with debates and things like that, and our interviews are a little lower. But I really enjoyed talking with him because it seemed like a really reasonable guy. Even when I didn't agree with the points that he was making, like with respect to tariffs, I thought he explained them pretty well. So I appreciated that. Trump 2020 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 O's says, I'm new with 3 W's, Trump 2020, and at least 20 exclamation points. I gotta say, what's really endearing about the Trump folks is that they always charge on in and immediately say Trump 2020, as if that's the only substantive thing they ever have to offer the conversation. And that does typically seem to be the case. But nevertheless, Trump 2020 with 14 O's, it is a delight to have you. Welcome. Sarah's Rogue says if he wins and something goes wrong, he know how to use his lawyer. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Will you go berserk after Trump wins? Thank you, sir. I wouldn't count on him winning. But nor would I go. Why would I go berserk after Trump wins? I mean, if Trump wins, we're basically stuck where we're at now, which is on a slow decline into a third-rate power. But hey, we're already on that slow decline, so I don't think I'm going to go berserk, although I might have an extra drink. All right, Trump 2020, can I have your phone number? No, you can't have my phone number. But, for everybody else watching, what did you think? I tried to make that, a... yeah, right? They're always trying to talk about these shy Trump voters. Folks, I have never seen a shy Trump voter. They are always very quick to tell you how they feel. But yeah, what did you think about the interview? I started off with some questions that were pretty, I don't think they were rude, but they were, pretty clear. What did y'all think? You're a great speaker in general, dude. Thank you, Blue Magic. I appreciate that. Reference to Destiny's rally stream. Oh, I should have done that, yeah. That was good. Are you from Pensacola, somewhere in District 1? I am from Pensacola. So that's it. And I used to hide that, but now that I've given away my P.O. box, I think it's pretty obvious. So that's where I'm at. Let's see here. Trump fans are just... Okay. Well, we don't have to get personal about Trump fans just yet. There'd be plenty of time for that. Let's see. Seems like a reasonable guy. Glad you liked it, Stubbled Up. Glad to hear it. You did a very good job. Thank you, CQD. I appreciate that. Seems like a nice guy. Great guest. Very enjoyable. Right on. Glad to hear that. If Phil Ehr wins, says I'm explicit, it'll be a huge upset. But it's not even close how much more qualified he is over Gates. Well, that's good to hear. I'll say this. I don't know how likely it is that Matt Gaetz will hop onto my Twitch internet stream. But I wish I had had the thought to invite Phil Ehr on earlier, because if I had, then I also would have invited Matt Gaetz, and while he probably wouldn't have showed up, given the, again, like we were saying, does Fox News every night, maybe. I mean, who can say, right? So, maybe we'll invite him anyway. I mean, worst that can happen is he just says no. I wish he would have debated Phil Ehr. Did they not do a debate? I guess they didn't do a debate, did they? Is Matt Gaetz a very popular representative? Well, this is a very Republican district. And I guess what I would say is, you can still interview if he wins. Yeah, that's true. I guess what I would say is, while it is very Republican, the real question is that while it would be an upset if our guest won, this year, it's hard to read where things will go, because at the end of the day, we're looking at really a high turnout, much higher than we've seen in previous years. So it's hard to say. He would debate Phil. They asked multiple times. Oh, wow. Ugh, jeez Louise. That's kind of a drag. What district is he running for? He is running for the 1st Congressional District. So, that's where he's running. I couldn't find any polling for the race either. So, when is the thing with Neoliberal and Company? Tomorrow night. And that's where we're doing that. And that should be, I think that'll be starting, let's see, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to play some games and just kind of chill and chat for a couple hours until, results start coming in. And then we'll be talking with some really cool people, Shoshana Weissman and Scott Lincecum, two former guests from our wonderful show here, as well as all the mods from the Neoliberal account. Noah Smith, really cool guy from Bloomberg News. and a lot of other folks. So it's going to be interesting. Really, really all-star liberal shill panel. And I think it'll be a lot of fun, too. Meet some new people, play some games, and, maybe celebrate, maybe commiserate, or maybe be left, perhaps likeliest of all, on a cliffhanger waiting for the days, waiting for the days ahead to let us know who actually won the big race. So we'll see. Think Florida will go blue this week, or this year? I guess it would be this week, right? I hope so, but I think it's, 50-50. It's hard to say. Zucka says, Trump is your president. Yes, he is technically the president of the United States. If you mean I support the office, support him personally, that I have to, no, I don't. But yeah, he is the president of the United States. Whether that makes him my president in some ethereal sense... let's see. Are you a Trump voter, says Spiral Jetty? What do you think, my friend? Let's see. Where are the polls? Yeah, I don't know. 8 more years? Yeah, I don't think so. If only because the man is surely not going to make it through 8 years on a diet of KFC and the stressors of the presidency. I mean, it's hard to imagine President Trump really cruising into his mid-80s on a diet like that with the kind of stresses that come with the presidency. Also... the 22nd Amendment. Okay. Blue Magic says, are neoliberals fiscally conservative? Oh, Scott. Yeah, I forgot he's got... Well, now his doctor insists he's in perfect health. And he did get Regeneron, so who can say what's going to happen? Are neoliberals fiscally conservative and socially liberal? Certainly socially liberal and fiscally, conservative in some ways and not in others. Fact check, Trump is the fittest man on planet Earth. Well, that's good to hear. Okay. Let's see. Let's get some music going here. Okay. All right. So, folks, that was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. We've been doing a lot more of these interviews and discussions lately over the last few months. So, Terrence says, Bassi at 538 gives Biden a 69% chance to win Florida. The Economist gives him a 79% chance. Hey, I hope it happens. For sure, but I guess I'm just skeptical. Stubbled Up says, you plan to have any more interviews coming up? Well, we don't have. Let's see. Do we have? Let's see. Do I have any others? I have some I'm working on, but I don't have any scheduled yet. So we'll see. Oh, I need to reach out to. How do I do this? Justin Amash, the Are You Really a Trump voter? I literally just said Trump would be a disaster for this country if he was reelected. The only thing I haven't said is that I would cry myself to sleep if he won again, which seems to be the notion among some of our Trump supporters here, that I guess if Trump wins, I will then have to, stick my head into a bag and cry. No. But, I think he'll be a disaster for the country. Bias is a closet Trump supporter. No. I told my guests I voted for him. Why would I, I voted for a Democrat for Congress, so why would I be voting for Trump? Let's see. That soy diet will make you weepy. Not really. Soy doesn't have any such effects. I looked it up before I started drinking those Soylent drinks. Okay, the Orange Devil. Okay, Trump bad, he orange. Yeah, Trump bad, but not because he's orange, just because he's bad. Okay. Whoever wins doesn't make a difference to me in the long run. Well, I am glad to hear, Sarah's Rogue, that you are in a good position. I guess I would say that for me personally, yeah, it doesn't make a big difference. But to the extent he weakens the long-term viability of the country, it makes a long-term difference. And of course, there are a lot of people who will be very directly impacted by his win. So, Bassi, where would you disagree with a libertarian? For example, there are a lot of libertarians who want to end, quote, end the forever war. That's just the new way of revealing yourself to be an isolationist, and absolutely against that. In fact, isolationists, get out. Get out. Isolationists, get out. I know, for example, Austin Peterson, one of the fellows who's running for the Libertarian Party nomination in 2016, talks about that a lot. I would certainly disagree with him there. I tried to have him on the stream, and he expressed some interest, but I think I think probably me being like pro-Biden turned him off. So we'll try again after the election when the Biden-Trump thing isn't an issue one way or another. So, Let's see here. Okay. Are you in favor of electoral reform? Yes. Although I don't think you can abolish the Electoral College, unless you reform the Constitution. What you can do is the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, where basically a bunch of states agree that they will give their electoral votes to the winner of the winner of the popular vote. It's not really a compact because the states can do it independently, but it's kind of a compact because the states would be doing it in response to other states doing it. So it's kind of a mixed issue. But that's the only way I see the Electoral College going anywhere. As for ranked choice voting, yeah, that sounds good. Amateur Degenerate says, wolves and sheep voting over lunch then? It's kind of a, like, what are you saying there? Like, is that what you're saying the presidency would be without the Electoral College? Because I'll tell you what the Electoral College means. The Electoral College means that if you don't live in Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia now, North Carolina, if you don't live in one of the 5 states where it's unclear who's going to win, your vote is worth fucking nothing. So that's the Electoral College. If you're a Republican in California, you may as well stay the fuck home. If you're a Democrat in, Montana, stay home. Right? Doesn't matter. That's the Electoral College for you. The Electoral College ensures that my vote as a Floridian will mean a whole lot more than your vote as somebody in, 40 states? So yeah, that's the real value of the Electoral College, is that it drives attention and money to swing states, because it sure as hell doesn't benefit small states or large states in any real fashion. All it does is benefit swing states. And in that sense, it's ridiculous and arbitrary. How would the popular vote deciding that be a difference? I'll tell you why. Because suddenly, Republicans in California, Democrats in Montana, these different groups, every single vote matters. And you can't just write them off because of the state in which they're located, right? So that's why it matters. Because right now, those voices are functionally irrelevant. And that shouldn't be the case with respect to the one national office that is popularly elected in this country, the presidency of the United States. Now, I'm not dissing Montana. I'm not dissing California. I don't know how you could say that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying people there ought to be able to, their individual vote ought to matter. Okay. My vote is that way, functionally important. Yeah, and that shouldn't be the case, right? Okay, the only votes that should matter are votes made by a person of land. Well, as a landlord, I think that's certainly an attractive point of view. But, I think probably everybody should be able to vote. And their vote should be weighted as equally as possible, given that we are all elected, that we are all subject to the authority of the federal government. So, as if every state voted on the same day, would abolishing the Electoral College be less important? No. The program for abolishing it would be done in the fashion I said, where a state would just agree to award its electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. So how the state, comes to that conclusion, I guess, is not really so relevant as the fact that they come to that conclusion, right? You could still have, you could have a date by which, I guess, the tally is done, and then that's when you would award the electoral votes. Do you think it'd be a straight popular vote for the presidency? Yes. So everybody under the sun in the United States should be able to vote? Yeah. And that includes Puerto Ricans, people in Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, Washington, D.C. Yeah. So official makes those smaller state votes not matter versus unofficially. No, I'm saying right now, I guess the argument made by some people that the Electoral College benefits small states, I don't see that being the case. It doesn't seem to benefit the people of Massachusetts or the people of Nebraska, right? Because their votes are already clear. It only seems to benefit swing states. And that itself changes, I guess, from time to time. But okay. Without the Electoral College, the election would only matter on who? California, Texas, and New York? Sir, there is no basis for that claim whatsoever. That claim is based on the idea that, again, you would only focus on the large states. But that's just not true. There's no basis for that whatsoever. You would be free to go for votes across the country. And I think that's how it would happen. Okay. Let's see here. We should raise the voting mental age. Absolutely not. If you are subject to the authority of the government, you need a vote because that is your only way to push back on the authority of the federal government or the state government or whatever government that you're voting for. That's why you have a vote. Not because you are there to contribute to make some wise decision. The wisdom of your decision really is, to me, irrelevant. All that matters is that you are free to make a decision. Because without that, then you have no pushback against the force of the state, right? You can, I guess, you have the pushback of going to courts and things like that, but on the whole, your vote is probably your biggest, for most people, their vote is their biggest form of influence on our system. So, how can you be an oil shill and a Democrat? Because, Wild Gadfly, I recognize that the Democrats aren't going to destroy the fossil fuel business. I mean, they're going to work toward the long-term, address of climate change and the long-term winding down of the fossil fuel business as we know it now. But, companies like BP and Shell have already talked about doing that on their own. And I think they recognize that in the long term, that's going to happen. Business is already on board there. So really, I think it's reactionary businesses and reactionary Republicans who are on this kick that oil is going to be destroyed overnight, or perhaps worse, that climate change is made up and there's nothing we need to do about it. Let's see here. It's nonsense. Oil isn't going anywhere overnight. Certainly, natural gas isn't. Okay. Is your job in jeopardy if we stop fracking? No. And also, we're not going to stop fracking. Biden's plan is to stop fracking on public lands, which pretty moderate position, all things considered. But look, natural gas is going to continue to flow for a long time, even after oil is pared down, because at this point we've built so much electrical generation that we're going to have to do a lot of replacing it with clean energy before we scrap natural gas. And even if we scrap huge amounts of it, there's still going to be plenty of it, because natural gas is what we call a reliable peaking fuel. That is to say, you can fire up a natural gas power plant really quick. You can turn it off really quick as your electricity load peaks and declines. And that's harder to do with other plants, like, say, a nuclear plant, All right. Think about trying to heat every house on electric. Oh, boy. Yeah, it'll take time, but we'll get there. Thoughts on solar energy? I have nothing against it. It only continues to get more economical and affordable. And I've heard some people say, well, solar is actually a big sham because it takes more carbon emissions to build the panels than to actually, than you save with the solar energy. But I haven't seen anything that says that's the case. It is worth considering the carbon cost of renewable energy, which is certainly there, but the notion that you never come out ahead is just not true as far as I've been able to see. Ty says, how'd you get into the energy industry and why? Well, I got a job in it, and I really liked it, so I stuck with it. At first, I wanted to be a prosecutor, as say, put people in jail. But then, I guess I kind of, came into my libertarian streak, and I decided, I don't want any of that. I want to contribute to something productive. I don't want to put people in jail. I want to put clean, burning natural gas into your local power plant, or into your local factory, on and on and on. Also, you make more money. But I really thought I was going to be a prosecutor. That's what I was really, that's what I went to law school for. But I changed my mind after the first year, because it's just, I don't want to put people in prison for drugs, and I think there's a lot of over-criminalization in our society, and I don't want to be a part of it. So, that's me. Finally decided that money is better than not money. No, it actually didn't have anything to do with the money. Let's see. You create plenty of natural gas on Twitch 3 nights a month. Oh, thanks for that. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you. By the way, if you haven't already followed us on Twitter.com, be sure to check it out. Great Twitter.com there. Check it out. Helps us get guests like our esteemed Phil Ehr tonight. It was a lot of fun. And if you haven't joined our Discord yet, what are you doing? You're missing out. It's the best little community around. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. You can meet folks there, like, for example, Perplexed Blackout, who once told us that Justin Trudeau was I think, worse than Hitler. That was a real spicy take. but he has continued to stand by it despite everything. Real cast of characters in that Discord community. Gotta say, I don't think I'd agree with that position. For any Canadians in chat, doesn't seem like Justin Trudeau is that bad. In fact, he seems like an alright fella, all things considered, among global leaders. But anyway, Bazzi, have you ever been on the Neocon NWO subreddit? Oh my god, Moon Life. No, I haven't. Let's check that out. Neocon NWO. I don't know what that's about. Okay. Bazzi, is this where you pull your hair out? Let's say natural gas becomes the most used. You're going to be the enemy number one to a lot of people. So what? Who cares if I'm the enemy number one to a lot of people? What are you going to do about it? You going to kill me because I represent natural gas companies in court? No. I mean, I guess you could try, but, you know, as BNN reported last night, wouldn't be so easy. But that said, look, everybody has a right to representation. Murderers, rapists, thieves, alleged, or convicted. And frankly, it's absolutely true of a natural gas company as well. So, hey, I would certainly go down to my grave standing for the fact that everybody, every company, every person, every individual, and of course, as Mitt Romney once said, corporations are people too, my friend. Every person is entitled to legal representation. And, I'm absolutely proud of the work I do. Are public defenders issued in civil cases? No. There are occasionally there are sometimes public mediators, but not public defenders. So, who knows? Bassett may eventually turn over some other energy firm in the future. Yeah, it's true. Johan says, thoughts on Reagan's presidency? Reagan did a lot of bad things, but Reagan did some good things too. And he was a great speaker. So I generally regard Reagan fondly in that sense, but I would not want another Reagan as president. That's the long and short of it. Basia, who's your third best president? Gosh, we made a chart about this. I believe it was FDR or Teddy Roosevelt. I think it was one of those two. The best was Lincoln. The second best was Washington. I forget which one it was. It might have been FDR, because World War II is such a monumental victory. And holding the country together through the Great Depression and all that. So FDR did a lot of big stuff. Of course, Teddy Roosevelt, also really big guy. Hey, I hope so, Desi93, and thank you so much, by the way. I really do appreciate that. Now subscribing for 7 months, amazing. Thank you so much for that. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, well, I sure would appreciate that. We are on the cusp of 250 subscribers. So if you'd like to join in, hey, now would be a great time. Remember, it's free of charge with Twitch Prime and Amazon Prime, and all of your subscriptions go to making this channel a more wonderful place. So thank you for that. What is your third worst president? Might be Trump, actually. It's hard to say, but I think because we put James Buchanan as the absolute worst, I don't think it would quite be Trump, but he was down there pretty low. But James Buchanan, unquestionably the worst president of the United States, without a doubt. James Buchanan is basically responsible for the fact that the Civil War was as brutal as it was. Because James Buchanan let the southern states break away and spoke against it, but did nothing to stop them from marshaling a military. And by the time Lincoln got into office, the southern states were armed and to put down a rebellion and restore the rule of law, hundreds of thousands of Americans had to die. So yeah, James Buchanan, unquestionably the worst. I think unquestionably the second worst has to be Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson, who basically squandered Reconstruction as far as possible. This was a Southern planter who took over after Lincoln was assassinated, and immediately, Andrew Johnson hated, very clear to say this, hated black people. So the president in charge of implementing the end of slavery after Lincoln's assassination was a virulent racist who was interested in bringing the southern states into the Union as quickly as possible. And while he wanted to smash his planter class, smash the planter class in the South, what he really managed to do in the process was to create a fertile breeding ground for the reassertion of basically institutionalized, government-enforced white supremacy. Now, Ulysses S. Grant, I think, deserves high marks for pushing back on that, but Andrew Johnson really did a number on this country. So, yeah, definitely second worst, because he squandered the opportunity that Lincoln pulled out in the Civil War, by winning the Civil War. Okay. Would you vote for Teddy Roosevelt if he was running in 2020 versus Biden? Well, I guess I'd like to see what 2020 Teddy Roosevelt would have to say, but I'd certainly be open to it. Yeah. On that note, Cushby, thank you for gifting a Tier 1 subscription to our community. I really do appreciate that. One to Pezzy, a great member of the community as well. And Darby FPS, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime. That's very cool, my friend. And Aronis HS says, has contributed 200 bits and asks, would you recommend law school? It depends on what you want to do, I guess. I wouldn't go to law school if you don't want to be a lawyer, for example. But if you want to be a lawyer and you've got some plan, then sure. I would say that the debt I went into to go to law school has not really impacted my life so much. It's not ideal to take a 15% haircut off of your pay because you have to service your debt. I don't know if it's quite 15%. Let's see. Yeah, but it's not. I think it's around 10%. So that sucks. But the end result still leaves you, far ahead of where you would otherwise be in terms of income. So the debt is not really a problem. It's worth checking out. But just try and have a plan, I guess. You don't want to go in with no plan. You don't have to stick to the plan. I clearly didn't stick to the plan. But you want to be moving in some direction, doing some positive things to push yourself forward. So, and holy moly, Pezzy, thank you for gifting 5 subscriptions to our community. So cool, getting us to level 3 of the hype train. One from Cactus Cooler, one to Oh Sweet Pete, one to JHSS84, one to Pepezian, and one to Wazaris. Thank you so much for that, my friend. 5 subscriptions, very cool. So good to have you. Dropping dollars, amen. Yeah, very cool, folks. I've been away for a while, and I'm hoping to get back into more consistent streaming as work gets back into a more normal schedule. So, and thank you so much, Healable Hades, for subscribing to Twitch Prime. Very cool, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like we need 3 subscriptions to get to the next level of the hype train. How would you define freedom broadly? Asks Healable Hades. Well, I'll tell you how I would define freedom. My view of freedom is fundamentally, first and foremost, the right of the individual to be free from the oppression of the state and to be free from violence from their fellow citizens, right? The purpose of the state is to protect me from, I guess, you and my neighbors, all of that, right? That's why they get a monopoly of violence, so that none of us are using violence against one another, except in self-defense. But beyond that, I think it means freedom from. So freedom, from arbitrary search and seizure, freedom from unfair trials, freedom from government restriction on our speech, things like that. Now, I recognize that doesn't always work out to be a kind of freedom from. For example, the 6th Amendment has been interpreted to guarantee a right to counsel, which I think is a very reasonable guarantee, given that you can't really have a right to a fair trial if you don't have an attorney. So I think that in that sense, there are some kind of, rights to, to things in that sense. But I think they're pretty limited. I would, for example, not call healthcare a human right, even though I would support a universal healthcare type policy, because I think I fundamentally have, as an individual who believes in individual freedom, have a right to be free from government oppression, arbitrary government action. But I don't think that means I have a right to your labor. So I think there are good arguments for healthcare nonetheless, but I would base those on on other grounds. I wouldn't base that on, freedom or human rights. I know there are some people who say, well, freedom, is not real if you don't have the material means to enrich yourself, or not to enrich yourself, to live the kind of life you want to live. That doesn't really resonate with me, because ultimately those material means have to come from somebody. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense to say that the role of government is to redistribute for the sake of basically to take from you to give to somebody else for the sake of making their freedom tangible. That doesn't make sense to me, because it's still fundamentally an infringement on the freedom of the first person. So what I would prefer is to have a society where we recognize that freedom means freedom from government oppression, and then with respect to redistribution, healthcare, and things like that I support anyway, I don't think those are justified in terms of grounds of freedom. I think those are justified more on a grounds of security, basically. I don't think it's possible to have a viable, effective, safe society without some form of redistribution and social security in the broadest sense of those terms. And look, I think a broad program of social support is a lot cheaper and a lot more effective than a broad program of police oppression. Pinkwug says, "You mean rights don't mean much if it is impossible to exercise them?" Yeah, I've heard people say that. Although again, I don't think that I don't think that's a credible position to say. For example, if you don't have the material means to exercise the First Amendment, that it's therefore not tangible for you. I think the right is to be free from government oppression. That doesn't mean, therefore, that the government has to give you the tools by which to speak, for example. It only has to get out of your way and let you, acquire them, at your own ability. Let's see. Are you pro-job then? What do you mean pro-job? Who's anti-job? Are there people out there who are anti-job? I don't know what you mean by that. Perplexed Blackout says government should uplift people rather than paying for them. Out of curiosity, Perplexed Blackout. Out of curiosity, and thank you, by the way, for everybody who supported the hype train. I appreciate that. We got some really cool new emotes. Thank you so much for that. Out of curiosity, Perplexed Blackout. Are you on any government assistance? Do you think government assistance is a worthwhile endeavor? Are you on it but also against it? Okay. I've made $178,000 through government assistance. And yet, government should uplift people rather than paying for them. All right. Well, hey. But, no, wait a minute. You do have a choice. Just to be clear, you don't have to take the money. I mean, I would take the money, I guess, if I were in that position. But you don't have to take it, right? I mean, unless you're saying the government has trapped you in a kind of a welfare trap. Okay. Bazzi, that Australia pin, where'd you get that? It's not an Australia pin. It's actually a pin of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I wear this pin because I try to, represent, I guess, myself as a supporter of our international alliances, our friends in Canada and Britain, France and Germany and all our other NATO allies. And while we don't have, while Australia isn't in our NATO alliance, broadly speaking, I try to, this flag is intended to represent our allies. So, okay. Oh, did the stream go down? Can you folks hear me even though the stream sound is down? Oh, bad time to host us, Rage Pope. Holy moly. Stream died. Man, what a drag. DDoS. Okay. Are we still dead? God. Nice one, Rage Pope. Killed the stream. Okay. Yeah, I gotta say, this is a real drag. I'm glad this didn't happen during the interview tonight, but yeah, real drag. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's see if we can close everything and get a little better. Bossi's stream needs 178K in government assistance. Amen. Okay. All right. Well.